I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but there's something about being a strong woman that nobody understands. Everyone's calling me shallow and materialistic now, but they don't know the real reason I said what I said to Marcus that night. They don't know what I was actually testing him for, or why it felt so necessary at the time. The worst part about what happened isn't that I'm 3 weeks away from eviction. It's not even that Marcus won't return my calls. It's that I knew exactly what I was doing when I said those words to him, and I said them anyway because I thought I was protecting myself from something much worse than losing an apartment. If I don't tell this story, you'll never understand why a 32-year-old woman with a master's degree is currently Googling how to break a lease at 2 in the morning. But once you know what I know, you'll see why I had no choice but to push him away, even if the timing was catastrophic. I'm going to tell you everything, including what I found on his phone 3 days before the fight. And the part that makes me look worst, I'm saving that for the end because you need to understand who I was before Marcus first. 6 months ago, I was coming off a relationship with Tyler that had left me financially and emotionally wrecked. We'd dated for 3 years, and for the last 18 months of that, I'd been essentially supporting both of us. Tyler was between opportunities, which is what men call it when they're too proud to work retail but not motivated enough to actually land something in their field. I paid for everything. Groceries, utilities, his car insurance twice, even his mother's birthday gift because he was cash poor that month. When I finally ended things, I had $847 in my checking account and about $12,000 in credit card debt from keeping us afloat. Tyler took the PlayStation I'd bought him for Christmas and told me I was too controlling and materialistic to ever make a man happy. He actually said that. The man who'd been living rent-free in my one-bedroom for over a year called me materialistic on his way out the door. So yes, I had some trust issues when Marcus came into the picture. Can you blame me? I met Marcus at my friend Sienna's birthday party. He was a friend of her husband, worked in IT project management, had his own place in the suburbs. He dressed well but not flashy. When Sienna introduced us, the first thing he did was ask what I did for work, and when I told him I was a learning and development specialist at a healthcare company, he actually asked follow-up questions. Real ones. Not the glazed over, that's cool, most guys offer before changing the subject to something about themselves. We talked for 2 hours at that party. He didn't buy me a drink, I bought my own, and he noticed and commented that he appreciated a woman who didn't play games. At the time I thought that was refreshing. Looking back, I wonder if I should have let him buy the drink. Our first date was coffee on a Sunday afternoon. Low-key, public safe, he showed up 5 minutes early. We talked about our families, past relationships, he'd been divorced for 2 years, no kids, what we wanted from life. He told me he'd been focused on rebuilding himself financially after the divorce because his ex-wife had maxed out their joint credit cards before leaving. I felt seen, I felt understood. I just want someone who's my partner, you know, he said, stirring his Americano. Someone who shows up equally. I'm done with relationships where one person does all the heavy lifting. I could have kissed him right there. We started seeing each other regularly. Twice a week at first, then 3 times, then it became unusual if we went a full day without at least meeting for lunch. Marcus was consistent. He texted when he said he would. He made plans in advance. He split checks without being weird about it, or sometimes he'd pay and sometimes I would, and it felt balanced in a way I'd never experienced. 2 months in, we were basically living at each other's places on weekends. My apartment was closer to the city, walkable to restaurants and bars. His place was bigger but farther out. We made it work. That's when I started noticing little things. Not red flags exactly, just things. Marcus never suggested expensive dates. When I mentioned wanting to try this new restaurant downtown that had gotten great reviews, he'd look up the menu and say something like, "Looks good, but maybe we save that for a special occasion." We'd end up at the Thai place near my apartment instead, which was fine. The Thai place was great. But it happened every time. When my car needed new tires and I was stressed about the $600 expense, Marcus was sympathetic but didn't offer to help. He did send me a link to a cheaper tire place across town, though. I appreciated the thought, even if I was secretly hopping for a different response. I started paying attention to what he wore, where he shopped, how he spent money. His clothes were nice but always from Marshalls or TJ Maxx. He brought lunch from home every day. He drove a 2014 Honda Civic with a crack in the windshield he'd been meaning to fix for a while now. Just when I thought I had him figured out as genuinely frugal, he'd do something that confused me. He had a nice watch, not designer but nice. His apartment had good furniture, not the particle board stuff from IKEA. He took a weekend trip to Denver to visit friends and came back with photos from nice breweries and restaurants. So he had money. He just didn't want to spend it on me. That thought started as a whisper I could ignore, but it got louder. 3 months into dating, my lease was coming up for renewal and my landlord hit me with a $200 monthly increase. I was still crawling out of the debt hole Tyler had left me in, and the increase felt impossible. I mentioned it to Marcus while we were watching TV at his place. "That's brutal," he said, eyes still on the screen. "Have you looked at places farther out? You could probably find something cheaper if you're willing to commute." I stared at the back of his head. We'd been dating for 3 months. We spent most nights together. He had a 2-bedroom apartment and worked from home half the week. He didn't offer. I told myself it was too soon. We weren't at that stage yet. It was presumptuous to expect it. I signed the new lease and started picking up freelance training gigs on weekends to cover the increase. 4 months in, Marcus started talking about the future. Nothing concrete, just little comments. "When we go to that music festival next summer, or I think you'd really like my cousin when you meet her at Thanksgiving." It felt good. It felt like we were building towards something. Then my best friend Jasmine came to visit for a weekend and everything shifted. Jasmine has always been my reality check. She's a corporate lawyer, makes great money, takes no shit. I'd hated Tyler from day one and hadn't been shy about it. I was nervous for her to meet Marcus, but I was also confident. Marcus wasn't Tyler. Marcus had his life together. We all went out to dinner on Saturday night, me, Marcus, Jasmine, and Sienna. The conversation was flowing, wine was happening, and at some point Jasmine asked Marcus what his plans were for his place. "What do you mean?" he asked. "Well, you're renting, right? You planning to buy soon?" Marcus got this uncomfortable look. "Actually, I own it. Bought it 2 years ago, right after the divorce was finalized." I nearly choked on my pasta. He owned it. He'd never mentioned that. I'd been over to his place dozens of times and somehow never realized he owned it. I just assumed he was renting like me. "Smart," Jasmine said. "Market's been crazy. You must have built up decent equity already." Marcus gave a modest shrug. "It's been a good investment." Later, when we were back at my apartment and Jasmine was in the bathroom, I asked him about it, tried to keep my tone light. "You never mentioned you owned your place." "Didn't I?" He looked genuinely surprised. "I guess it never came up. That's a pretty big thing to not come up." "I don't know, I don't really think about it. It's just where I live." Jasmine emerged before I could push further. But after Marcus left the next morning, she sat me down on my couch with coffee and gave me the look. "Be careful with this one," she said. "What? Why? He's nothing like Tyler." "I know, that's not what I mean." She wrapped both hands around her mug. "He's financially stable, clearly. He owns property. But did you notice he still let you pay your half of dinner last night, even after talking about his real estate investment? We always split things. That's what equals looks like." Equals is great when you're both in the same position. But girl, you're still digging out of Tyler debt. Your rent just went up. You're working weekends. And this man owns property and hasn't once offered to ease the pressure. "It's only been 4 months, Jas. I'm not saying he should be supporting you. I'm saying a man who cares notices when you're struggling. And if he has the means to help and chooses not to," she trailed off. "Let me finish the thought myself." After she left, I went down a rabbit hole I'm not proud of. I looked up his address on Zillow. His condo was worth about $340,000. He'd bought it for $285,000. I checked his LinkedIn. He'd been at his company for 6 years, promoted twice. IT project managers in our city made between $95,000 and $120,000 depending on experience. Marcus had money. Real money. And he was watching me drown without throwing a rope. Or was he? Was I being entitled? We weren't married. We hadn't even said "I love you" yet. Was I really expecting him to bankroll my life after 4 months? I thought about Tyler again. How I'd given and given until there was nothing left. How I'd promised myself I'd never be that person again. But this felt different. This felt like the opposite extreme. Like Marcus was so determined not to be taken advantage of that he'd turned generosity itself into a weakness. I started testing him. Small things at first. We'd be out somewhere and I'd forget my wallet on purpose. "Oh no, I left my purse in the car. Can you grab this and I'll Venmo you?" He'd pay, and then later that night, I get a Venmo request. $23.47 for my half of brunch. I mentioned my student loan payment was higher than expected 1 month because of interest recalculation. He said that was frustrating and asked if I'd considered refinancing. For my birthday, he took me to a nice dinner, the nicest we'd been to yet. Then we split the check. I thought this was my birthday dinner, I said, trying to smile like I was joking. It is, this was my treat suggestion, but I figured we'd do what we always do. Unless you want me to get it. He reached for the check. The moment hung there, I could say yes, I could let him pay, but it felt like a test I was failing by even wanting him to. No, it's fine, we'll split it. I Venmo'd him $67.50 and felt something harden in my chest. That night I brought up the future for the first time. We were back at his place in his bed, and I asked him where he saw this relationship going. I think we're good together, he said, pulling me closer. I could see this being long-term. What's long-term look like to you? I don't know, the usual stuff eventually. Moving in together at some point, maybe getting married if that's where we end up. Moving in together, I repeated. Like me moving in here. He was quiet for a second. We haven't really talked about logistics, that'd be a conversation to have when we get there. Would I pay rent if I moved into your place that you own? Now he pulled back a little, propped himself up on one elbow. I mean, we'd split expenses. That's fair, right? You don't have a mortgage payment. I have a mortgage, it's not huge but it exists, plus HOA fees, property tax, insurance, utilities. Running a household costs money. So I'd pay half of your mortgage, building equity in a property I'd have no ownership of. His face changed, got defensive. Where's this coming from? Are you trying to move in? Because we haven't even been together 6 months. I'm not trying to move in. I'm trying to understand how you think about partnership. I think about it as two people contributing equally. I thought you wanted that too. You made a big deal about not wanting to be taken care of when we first started dating. He was right. I had said that. After Tyler, I'd been vocal about wanting a partner, not a provider. But now it felt like Marcus had weaponized my independence into an excuse to never be generous. We dropped it, but the conversation stuck to me like oil. 5 months in, Marcus said he loved me. We were hiking, one of our free date activities, and he just said it while we were looking out over the lake. I love you, you know that? I said it back. I meant it mostly. But part of me was still calculating, still testing, still waiting for him to prove something I couldn't articulate. The financial stuff started bleeding into everything. When he'd suggest a night in instead of going out, I'd wonder if it was because he enjoyed my company or because he was being cheap. When he'd pick the cheaper wine at the store, I'd feel a flash of resentment I knew was unfair. I started spending more than I should out of spite. If Marcus wasn't going to treat me, I'd treat myself. New clothes, nice dinners with Jasmine, a weekend trip to Charleston I put on a credit card. Every purchase was a little act of defiance, proof I didn't need him. My debt climbed back up, the stress mounted. 6 months in, everything came to a head in the stupidest possible way. We were at Target again, his suggestion for a Saturday afternoon activity, and I wanted to buy this throw blanket for my couch. It was $40, not expensive but nice quality. Marcus looked at it and said, "You already have blankets though, right?" Something in me snapped. Yes, Marcus, I have blankets. I also have plates and cups and furniture, but sometimes people buy new things because they want them, not because they're on the verge of freezing to death. He held up his hands. Whoa, it was just a question. No, it's a judgment. Everything with you is a judgment about whether something's necessary enough, cost-effective enough, smart enough. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? That I'm working myself into the ground while you sit on a pile of equity and watch. We were in the home goods aisle. A woman with a cart rolled by, pretending not to listen. What do you want from me? Marcus asked, his voice low and sharp. Seriously, what is this about? It's about the fact that you claim to love me but you've never once, not one single time, offered to help when I'm struggling. You know I'm barely keeping my head above water. You know I'm still recovering from my last relationship. And you have money, Marcus. You have a whole property. But you'll split a 30 dinner check down to the cent. Because that's what you said you wanted. You said you wanted equal partnership. Equal doesn't mean identical when we're not starting from the same place. He stared at me. People were definitely listening now. So you want me to what? Subsidize your life? Pay your rent? Is that what this relationship is actually about for you? The accusation hit like a slap. Fuck you. I'm serious. Is this about me or my bank account? Because I've been down this road before and I'm not doing it again. I'm not your ex-wife. Then stop acting like I owe you something for existing. I left him there in Target, drove home shaking with rage and something that felt like grief. He texted an hour later. We should talk about this when we've both cooled down. I didn't respond. 2 days later he showed up at my apartment with flowers. Not expensive ones, grocery store flowers, probably $12.99. Even in his apology he was budget conscious, and I hated that I noticed. I'm sorry, he said when I opened the door. I shouldn't have said that stuff about your motives. I know you're not with me for money. Do you though? Yes, I do, but I also need you to understand where I'm coming from. My ex destroyed me financially. I'm still recovering too. And I can't be in a relationship where I'm expected to prove my feelings by spending money. That's not sustainable. I don't want you to prove your feelings with money. I want you to want to help me because you love me. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you're keeping score, like you're resentful every time we split a check. He wasn't wrong. I was keeping score. I'd been keeping score since Jasmine's visit, maybe since the lease renewal, maybe since the first time he'd sent me a Venmo request. We went inside. We talked for 3 hours. We both apologized. We agreed to be more aware of each other's baggage and triggers. We had the kind of sex that feels like resolution even when nothing's actually resolved. Things were good for a few weeks after that. Marcus made an effort to pay for more dates. I made an effort to not be weird about money. We were trying. But then I found the Zillow search history on his phone. I wasn't snooping, or I was, but not for anything specific. His phone was on my coffee table, face up, and a notification popped up. I saw the preview, something about a saved search. I picked it up, already unlocked from Face ID when he'd set it down, and there it was. Saved searches, 4 of them, all for multifamily properties, duplexes, triplexes, small apartment buildings, in our city and surrounding areas. Price range 400,000 600,000. I clicked into his browsing history before I could stop myself. Dozens of listings, mortgage calculators, articles about house hacking and rental income. A spreadsheet analyzing cash flow potential. Marcus was planning to buy an investment property. While I was drowning in debt and working weekends, he was building a real estate portfolio. I heard the toilet flush, shoved his phone back where it had been. When he came back into the living room, I was staring at the TV, not seeing it. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine." I wasn't fine. I was doing math in my head. If he could afford a down payment on a 500,000 investment property, he had significant savings. At least 100,000, probably more. And he'd watch me stress about a 200 rent increase. Just when I thought I couldn't feel more disconnected from him, he suggested we go away for a weekend. A real trip, he said, his treat. "Where?" I asked, suspicious of this sudden generosity. "There's this cabin I found. About 2 hours north, right on a lake. It's only $89 a night on Airbnb if we go midweek." Only $89 a night, his treat. I almost laughed, but I said yes because I wanted to believe we could fix this. I wanted the weekend away to reset everything, to remind us why we'd fallen for each other in the first place. The cabin was nice, small but nice. We got there on a Wednesday afternoon, stopped for groceries on the way, split the cost, made dinner together, drank wine on the deck. It was almost perfect. Thursday morning, I woke up to Marcus already on his laptop at the little kitchen table. "Working?" I asked, "just checking some stuff." I made coffee, brought him a cup, glanced at his screen. Zillow, another duplex listing. "What's that?" He closed the laptop too quickly. "Nothing, just browsing." "You're looking at investment properties." Pause. "Yeah, I've been thinking about it. It's a good wealth-building strategy." "When were you going to mention that?" "I don't know. It's still just research phase." "Why?" He really didn't get it. "Because I'm barely surviving and you're planning your investment portfolio. Because we're supposedly building a future together, but you make financial decisions like you're still single. Because every time I need something you have budget concerns, but apparently you have enough saved to buy a whole building. Those are 2 different things." "How?" "One is my money, my investment, my future security. The other is," he trailed off. "Is what, Marcus? Say it. Is you wanting me to solve problems that aren't mine to solve." There it was, the thing we'd been dancing around for months. "I'm not a problem to solve, I'm your girlfriend." "I know that, but your debt isn't my responsibility. Your rent isn't my responsibility. You made choices before you met me and I can't be expected to fix all of that." "I never asked you to fix it. I asked you to care that I'm struggling." "I do care. But caring doesn't mean emptying my savings because you're bad with money." The air went out of the room. "Bad with money," I repeated. I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" He rubbed his face. "You're in debt, you're stressed about rent. You work multiple jobs but still can't get ahead. From the outside, that looks like a spending problem or a budgeting problem, and those aren't things I can fix by just handing you cash." Every word was reasonable. Every word was technically true, and every word made me feel like I was 3 inches tall. "Tyler took advantage of me," I said quietly. "For over a year I supported someone who gave nothing back. I went into debt keeping us afloat because I thought that's what love looked like. And when I finally got out, I promised myself I'd find a real partner, someone who showed up equally. I have showed up equally." No, you've shown up identically. You've matched my effort and my money and my time down to the penny, without ever accounting for the fact that we're not starting from the same place. You have resources I don't have, you have security I don't have, and you're hoarding it like I'm going to rob you. That's not what I'm doing. Then what are you doing, Marcus? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm sitting, you love me just enough to keep me around but not enough to actually let me in. Not enough to build something real. You're still hedging your bets, still protecting your exit strategy. He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am protecting myself because I don't know how to be with someone who resents me for having my shit together. And I think that's what this is really about. You don't want a partner, you want someone to save you, and I can't be that person. Something crystallized in that moment, a clarity that felt like ice water. You're right, I said, you can't. We packed up that afternoon and drove home in silence. The cabin cost $267 total for the 2 nights. He Venmo'd me a request for half later that evening. I didn't pay it. We didn't officially break up that weekend, but we both knew. We limped through another week of tense texts and one awkward dinner before I finally said we should talk. We met at a coffee shop, neutral territory. He looked tired. I probably did too. I don't think this is working, I said. I know. I need someone who's willing to build a life with me, not next to me, and I don't think you trust me enough to do that. I don't think you respect me enough to do that, he countered. Every conversation we have about money turns into me being the villain for having boundaries. Boundaries or walls? Is there a difference when the other person keeps trying to scale them? Fair point. God, I hated that he had fair points. So this is it. I asked. I think it has to be. We sat there for another minute, not touching, not crying, just ending. For what it's worth, he said, standing up, I did love you, I do, but I can't love you and lose myself again. I did that once already. He left me there with a full coffee I wouldn't drink. That was 3 weeks ago. Here's the part I haven't told anyone, the part that makes me look worst of all. I thought he'd come back. I genuinely believed that Marcus would sit with the breakup for a few days, realize he'd rather have me with complications than not have me at all, and reach out. I thought he'd miss me enough to compromise. I thought I'd won some kind of game I didn't realize I was playing. He didn't come back. And now my rent is due in 1 week, and I'm $340 short because I've been spending like someone who had a backup plan. I'd been spending like someone who had a boyfriend with money, even though that boyfriend never offered to be my financial safety net. I've called him twice, texted 4 times. He responded once, I think it's better if we don't talk for a while. Jasmine knows some of it. She sent me $200 without me asking, just a Venmo with a heart. Sienna offered to let me crash at her place if it comes to that, but she has 2 kids under 5 and a 1-bedroom house. That's not sustainable. My mom keeps calling, but I can't tell her because she'll just say I should have held on to Marcus. She's old school like that. Thinks a woman with a good man is lucky regardless of how he treats her, because at least he's employed and faithful and present. I've been scrolling through Marcus's Venmo. It's public, because of course it is. He got drinks with friends 4 days ago. Paid someone back for concert tickets. He's living his life like I never mattered, while I'm over here trying to figure out if I can sell furniture to make rent. The worst part isn't that I'm alone. The worst part isn't even the money, though that's pretty fucking bad. The worst part is that I don't know if I was wrong. Was I? Was I being a gold digger like Marcus implied, like his silence confirms? Was I expecting too much, too soon, from someone who'd already been burned, or was I right to want more? Right to expect that love means wanting to ease each other's burdens when you can. Right to think partnership means more than just splitting checks and protecting your assets. Everyone online has opinions. I posted a vague story on Reddit from a throwaway account, didn't use names, changed details. Half the comments said Marcus was a stingy asshole. Half said I was entitled and manipulative. No consensus. No clarity. Here's what I know: I told him he wasn't man enough to handle me. I didn't use those exact words that night at the cabin, but that was the message. I wanted him to prove himself, to step up, to be bigger than his fear and his spreadsheets and his carefully calculated risk management. He chose not to. He chose himself. And maybe that doesn't make him a bad person. Maybe that makes him smart. Maybe that makes him someone who learned his lessons and kept his boundaries and protected his peace. But it definitely makes me someone who's about to get evicted. I've started looking at cheaper apartments. Studio places in worse neighborhoods, the kind with coin laundry in dark basements. I've applied for 3 credit cards I'll probably get denied for. I've picked up 2 more freelance training contracts that'll help in a month, but don't solve the immediate problem. What I haven't done is admit out loud that I sabotaged something good because I couldn't separate love from financial rescue, that I took my Tyler trauma and made Marcus pay for it. That I tested him over and over until he failed tests he never agreed to take. Or maybe that's not true either. Maybe Marcus was never going to be the partner I needed. Maybe his fear was always going to trump his love. Maybe we were just two damaged people trying to make a relationship out of matching wounds instead of healing. I don't have answers. I have a week until rent is due and a browser full of tabs about tenant rights and subletting and paycheck advance apps that charge 15% interest. Marcus owns property. He's probably in his nice condo right now, working from his home office, planning his investment portfolio, living his careful life. He's fine. He was always going to be fine. And me, I'm the cautionary tale. The woman who demanded too much or not enough, depending on who's telling the story. The one who couldn't just be grateful for a decent man with a job and a 401k. The one who wanted partnership to look like sacrifice, at least sometimes, at least when it mattered. I still think I was right, even if being right leaves me homeless. That's the thing they don't tell you about standing up for what you deserve. Sometimes you end up standing alone. Sometimes the person you're with chooses their comfort over your crisis. Sometimes love is conditional on you never needing too much. And sometimes you push someone away knowing exactly what it'll cost you, because the alternative, staying small, staying grateful, staying quiet about the inequality, costs even more. I told him he wasn't man enough to handle me, and he proved me right by leaving. Now I can't pay rent. And I still don't know if I'd take it back.